Welcome to the Brad Bodnerchuk podcast, and good morning all the way on the West Coast. Jaylee Thomas, welcome. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. And I always like to give some context to the listeners because who knows if they're listening to this hot off the press, which will be a week from today or maybe way into the future. But give people some context. It is 11:30 in the morning here on the East Coast of Canada, and Jaylee is literally just kicking off her day, I think, at 7:30 in the morning in Vancouver. But I think it would be really cool for me and listeners to understand, what does your morning usually look like? I mean, I don't think you're doing podcasts every morning at 7:30, but when does your alarm go off? What is that process like? I'm always intrigued by people that I feel are doing cool things, what their morning routines look like and how consistent they are with them.
I'm so glad you asked that question because I've actually never really thought about it. But now that I think about it, I definitely have a routine. I've just never thought about it in that respect. I usually wake up anywhere between 5:40 and 6:20 without an alarm.
Okay.
The only time I use an alarm is if I'm going to the gym at say 6 a.m. or got to catch a flight, but I don't even know what that's
like anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I just I naturally wake up that way because I'm always so tired by 9 o'clock. I'm in bed by 9:38 every night. I'm fighting. I'm also 40, so I'm 9:30 is a good time to go to bed. This makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I get up, I kind of lie in bed for 5 or 6 minutes, kind of just breathing and wondering what I'm thinking about. And then I get up, I make some coffee. I'm a person, I go right into checking my email and I get a bunch of stuff done. And then I head to the gym.
Okay.
So I'm usually at the gym by 7:15. And that's my favorite thing about my day.
And I want to spend some time on that. And I don't want to embarrass you, and I don't want to potentially be inappropriate, but I don't generally jump in. I dive into things. So if I end up embarrassing myself, I'm okay with it. But I have to say that having known you now for, I would say, I'm going to guess
6 years.
Yeah, I was going to say 5 or 6 years. I've seen something change in you as of late, and it was really I'll be honest, my desire to have you on the show today was to better understand it selfishly. And what I've seen as an outsider looking in is I've seen this new level of light within you. And I feel like it's now what was once in you is now external. And obviously I was exposed to you and got to experience you through the gym and learn a bit of your story and a bit of your background, which we'll get into today, which I find so inspiring. But I could see that there was so much more within you, and perhaps I would call it things like self-doubt or maybe lacking some confidence or whatever those things are. Whereas now I feel like you've exercised all of that and you're wearing it on the outside. So take us and myself through that process for you. So 6 years ago, when you and I first would have had the opportunity to experience each other, to now, what has changed for you? Why? And I can't be the only person who's seeing this, but why? You physically are glowing. You look incredible. And not that you didn't before, but it's something has changed within you, and now it's visceral for those of us on the outside.
Yeah. Okay. Tears to my eyes asking that question because I feel different. And it has a lot to do with, it's going to sound, well, I don't know how it's going to sound. It'll sound however it sounds, but I've done a lot of the work, I guess you could call it, whatever that means to whoever. But, I didn't know I was doing the work while I was doing it. It's only now that I've realized I did all these things that were part of the healing process. Because as I was diagnosed with late stage cancer when I was 32 years old. And that seemed to, at the time, I was like, oh my God, it came out of nowhere. I had no symptoms and all that. But, after being in therapy for 5 years, we're talking weekly therapy, I realized I was completely cut off from my body. I had no feeling in my body. I also grew up, again, this is going to bring tears to my eyes, with a lot of body image issues, a lot of shame around it, going through doing all sorts of insane things to change it. I hated it. And when you hate your body, how can you live in it? Sorry, it's really emotional for me because it's like, and the crazy thing is I didn't even realize I was doing that until I'd stopped doing it, if that makes any sense. So I got sick with cancer, which was kind of a wake up call from what I was being woken up from. I didn't think there was a problem. Like, I used to walk around thinking I was the most calm, cool, and collected individual because nothing stressed me out. Nothing bugged me. But what I realized is I was just so overwhelmed all the time that I was just numb. And so I had to dive into basically like learning how to feel my body, learning the language to describe what I was feeling. I had to notice my thoughts. I had to learn that I wasn't my thoughts, that a lot of, we have these things called intrusive thoughts that, because you would get so attached. I had to notice my patterns of thinkings. A lot of times the problem isn't what we're thinking, it's the pattern of our thinking, because you can err on the side of positivity and, think nothing but positive thoughts too far that it takes you away from reality, so and so I had to learn so much of this stuff. And I only got into therapy because I had cancer. And so it was cancer that got me in there, but not what kept me going. The more I went inward and, started to sit with whatever this was, I started to notice like who I was. And I mean, I can think of an example, and like, it's something so silly, but I used to, like, I just wanted people to like me. And so I would, if I would meet someone, I'd be very shy and I'd be very, kind of quiet. And because I would like, I wanted them to like me, and I would find that I would lose myself. And then I remember I think it was the summer of 2019, so only a year and a half ago, I started meeting more new people because with my business, with Remind Meditation, I have to, no one knows what that thing is, so I have to talk to people about it all the time. So I have to be able to talk to strangers. And so I remember, I would be meeting people. And so, someone would ask me, oh, what did you do this weekend? And I remember it was this one weekend, it was when the CrossFit Games are on, and it was a long weekend. And I actually stayed home and I watched the CrossFit Games because I was really into it at the time. And they were like, you stayed home all weekend and watched the games? And all of a sudden I saw myself, well, actually I didn't. And I saw myself pretending that I didn't because I thought, and I was like, wait a second, I like the CrossFit Games. It's like, yeah, I stayed home all weekend, but it was a very out of surreal experience for me, noticing that, oh, that's what I've been doing my entire life. And so ever since then, I've just been like, no, check in with yourself, be who you are, speak. But it's alert, like, I haven't nailed it. I'm just trying to, but the thing is, I wouldn't know any of those things had I not learned how to take a breath, notice my thoughts, check into how my body feels, and then move on. Like, my thoughts used to be so fast, and now they're still insane, but they're just like, I know what's happening out there a little bit more than I used to. And I don't know. And it was through things like meditation and movement, community. Like, it's all the things that they say you need when you're trying, like, anyway. So, yeah.
You've touched on a lot of things there. And I think some of them we'll definitely come back to, and I'd love to talk about all of them. But something that you said, which I think is really, really valuable for myself and for the listeners, especially female listeners, but male as well, is you mentioned that you hated your body. And how can you live within your body when you hate your body? So can you, and you said you had challenges even articulating how you felt. You didn't have the vocabulary to describe what you were feeling. And you mentioned the word numb. can you articulate now how you feel about your body and how that has manifested in what you see when you look in the mirror?
Yeah, like even just in the mindset. Like I've always worked out my entire life because I lived in this world where, if you just, were a little bit smaller, I would have all these options and opportunities and like life would be grand. And so that was why, I worked out my entire life. And so it never lasted. It was a lot of like yo-yo dieting, going ham at the gym 5 days a week, 2-a-days, and then taking your 2 days off. And like that would last 12 weeks. You'd start to see a change and then go back to whatever, and then it transitioned to, I got sick. And then I dove into, like, after I got sick, I took the precision nutrition course just to kind of learn a little bit about, how our body uses food and fuel. And then that made a lot of sense to maybe why I was sick, just treating my body all these ways. So I really and that's when I joined the gym where I met you. And, I realize now at the time what I was doing there was just building a habit, because I didn't really change anything else, but I just built the habit of going to the gym and moving every day with purpose because I didn't want to get cancer again. Then my reason shifted because I'd been doing it 3 years, and I started looking at my grandparents. My grandpa died in 2020. He was 98. His wife, Eleanor, my grandma's still alive. She's 98. And the difference between them is he, grew up on a farm. When he retired, he stopped moving. She didn't. She's still fully mobile at her age. And I was like, now my relationship with movement changed into, I just want to be mobile and be able to I don't hike, but hike. Let's be real. I'm a city girl. But then even more so in 2020, when we all went through what we're going through, I really started diving into trauma work and things like that. And I realized now I moved just to complete the stress cycle, because the reason, I think I got so sick was my entire life is I was never completing the stress cycle, because a lot of times we have, people don't understand, or maybe they do, but I didn't, at least for me, I didn't realize there was the stressor and then the stress. And so just because you've dealt with the stressor, you've handed in that project for work, your body doesn't know that. Your brain does, but your body doesn't. And you've got to now go complete that stress cycle. You got to move all that chemistry through your body. And so now even that has changed why I move, which has made me move with less intensity and more purposeful. And through that, I used to look at myself in the mirror and go, ooh, I know I did. I don't really remember those thoughts. They were unconscious. But now, I'll catch myself in the mirror getting out of the shower and I get excited because I think of how far I've come, and I realize that, no, for the first time, you're just taking care of your body because you want to experience life, right now, not because in 20 pounds later, then it'll start. So, and it's been a wild thing. I had to come home to my body, but the things I used to do to it, and when I was doing them, I thought they were normal. I did all of the things. I took human growth hormone. I did human growth hormone injections. I took clenbuterol. I think that was a horse asthma medication because that increased your body temperature. And this was all stuff, before I got sick. So it's what?
What? So at that point when you were doing those things to your body, what were you trying to achieve? What were you trying to fulfill?
I guess just lose weight. I don't know. Have abs. I don't even know. It's just, that was who I was. That was just who I was. And so it just sucked. But the crazy thing is I didn't know it really sucked at the time because I was a happy person. I was a very happy person. So it didn't, this is just what you, it's just what you do.
So when you look back at that past version of you, are you upset, angry, empathetic? What are you?
None of it. Because first of all, it's just what you do. Like, how can I be like, I didn't know any different. That's like expecting me to, you know, and I, you know, I used to have a lot of regret when I was going through the thick of it with therapy. It would be like, oh, if this had just happened to me, or if I was just raised this way, or if I just had that, none of this would have happened. Maybe I would have done better in school. Like, I had all of those thoughts. But then I started, I don't know if this was in 2019 or 2020 or 2020. And I just kind of woke up one day, and because I consume a lot of content. Just because I've worked from home my whole life, I'm just always listening to things. And I guess it's just like also starting to sink in. And so I just kind of woke up one day and I was like, regret is the most useless emotion, because it's like, it's literally the feeling of wanting to go back and change something. And you can't, like, it's physically and impossible. And so it was kind of, why am I even wasting my time thinking about this? I can feel remorse for it. You know, if I hurt someone, I can apologize for it meaningfully, obviously. But I just kind of woke up and was like, I'm feeling the wrong feeling about this. And even there, it's like judgment around that feeling, but I had to let it go. And I just, you know, and then I started looking around at all the people in my life who were important to me, my parents, my siblings, my husband. And I realized I had like them all placed on a pedestal and like had these expectations that they're going to meet. And so I had to get off all of that. But the thing is, like, I didn't know I was learning these things until after. I was like, oh, because I'm now starting to have more like childhood memories come back to me that I never even had in therapy. And what, again, I know about, again, learning through the brain and body is, you know, when trauma happens, it's an overwhelmingly, trauma can be an emotionally overwhelming experience that lacks a relational home. So it could be anything. It's so overwhelming and emotional. Your brain goes into fight or flight, the trauma response. And then after the fact, lacking the relational home is you have no one to relate it to or nowhere to relate it to. And again, those aren't my words. This is what I've learned through all the people, the experts. And I don't know, I realized the more I came home into my body and I started to understand its experience, like, this is the crazy thing. It wasn't until 2018. So I got cancer in 2013. So I'd been cancer free for 5 years. And then I started experiencing anxiety and panic attacks, which was like, what? I've been doing all this work. Now I'm going to have anxiety. Now I'm going to and then that sent me into a spin because I'm like, oh my God, I'm going backwards. But then again, one day I went, no, actually, it means I can feel my body. Like, I'm now feeling my body. I've probably been having these episodes my entire life. I just couldn't feel it. Now, again, this is what I think. And so I just, so then again, I had to come home to my anxiety and panic attacks railing, like, no, these are your bodily experiences. You get triggered with certain things, but I'm able to ground myself here. I'm learning tips and tricks and tools, because at first I thought this was something I was trying to avoid forever, but now I realize I've got to work with it. And I'm building a toolkit of 50 to 100 different things you can do to manage anxiety, to, top down regulation, bottom up regulation. And I don't know, it's been a cool experience, learning all this stuff. But again, I didn't even know I needed to learn it. So yeah, I'm a little different, I think.
A lot different.
Yeah, and my hips feel great. It's just good.
I think one thing that I've taken from what you've just shared and what I've seen through what you've been open enough to share through social media, and what I knew of you before is, and I think such a key delineation for people listening, especially the women, but again, men as well. When you mentioned you'll catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror as you come out of the shower and you feel different, you're you're like, I'm paraphrasing here for you a bit. You're like, dang, okay, like there she is. And but from what I hear you saying is that's not what you were focusing on. That's just a byproduct of the work that you've been doing and the consistency of it and the repetition. And the repetition is something that I think so many of us are afraid of and avoid. But that is, if you want that change to exist, if you really want that, you need to be doing these things repetitively. But you also didn't say, I'm now focused on, tightening up my butt and having a six pack. You're going much deeper. And just a byproduct of that is you're more in tune with your body. And all of a sudden, guess what? You walk in front of that mirror and you're having a far different conversation with yourself. But that never was, and again, I'm paraphrasing a bit and putting words in your, but that wasn't the MO. The MO wasn't that. But back then when it was, you were injecting yourself with stuff that was just like silly and ridiculous and probably not even helping you.
I don't even know where I got it. Like where?
I don't know where anyone gets that kind of stuff. It's a whole world that I'm impressed that you were able to track that down and get the confidence to do it. But I'm so proud of you to have gone through the journey that you've gone through, and I'm inspired by you, and I know that other people are as well. And it's just so cool to see you now. Like I see you on Instagram and you're getting in front of the camera and you're speaking to it and you're sharing, and I feel like you've exercised so much in your life to get to where you are, and I just think it's so cool and you have such a story to tell, and I'm proud to know you, and thank you for inspiring me with your story along the way.
Thank you for saying that. It's like I'm just trying to all I've been doing is trying to figure out who I am, because I've always felt like the one thing I always know is I've always had hope, which is the weird thing. Like that's my what's that, pilot light? That thing that keeps that
that's
going. I've always
burning.
I've just always had that. And I think that's the one thing that's always kind of not made sense though, because I just like, there's gotta be something better, I think, deep down, even when I didn't know. And I didn't mean, more this, more that. I just, I meant like I don't think I felt right.
Do you feel like,
makes any sense?
Yeah, no, it does totally. And this is a selfish question because it's something that I'm battling right now a bit, and I'm flowing through or punching my way through. Do you feel, or have you felt, maybe you're through this already, but do you feel like you're so in tune with your potential that you understand when you're not fulfilling it?
I kind of hear you asking like,
or your purpose?
I don't really know what my purpose is. Like, it's not that I don't know what my purpose. I do know what my purpose. Like, I just want to make. When I say I just want to make people feel good, I just mean like I want to change the temperature of a room. Like I want to leave people feeling better when they hang out with me than they did when they showed up. And I think that stems a lot from. I just know what it feels like to have the opposite. And so, and I don't know, sometimes I think like I guess for like what was your question again? Not lacking potential.
No, just like a level of awareness. It's like, say for example,
they can become a blind spot as well, I think. Yeah. I don't think there's ever any, I don't think you can be too aware, but you could definitely, again, it could be a pattern or problem where you become so aware you can't function. I mean, that's ridiculous too.
Right.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah, you don't have to worry about whether it does or it doesn't. I just appreciate you sharing. And let's change speeds just a little bit, because I think it's important that we spend some time on this piece, because I'm sure, again, it's really been a kind of what's the word, like a tipping point for you in more of this growth is your business, is Remind Meditation, which I've been so lucky to have been exposed to when I was in Vancouver. And I actually was showering before this call. Like I just got back from a run, and I was trying to like take myself back to that moment when I was under that incredible machine, which you'll tell us all about here in a second. And I was trying to like tap into the visions that I saw and the colors. And I don't know if you remember, but I have a video of Lindsay doing it,
Yes.
and she was laughing hysterically.
I look at that
Like,
picture actually
uncontrollably.
regularly because it makes me so happy.
So again, context is so important, because anyone listening right now, they're saying, I have no idea what they're talking about if they haven't been exposed to my meditation yet. So what is it? What is this machine? And why was Lindsay laughing so hard that she was almost peeing herself that day?
Yeah. Okay. So through, again, part of my journey from being sick, one of the side effects of the chemotherapy that I did killed my longest nerves, or damaged my longest nerves from my spine to my feet and my spine to my hands. And so I had pins and needles 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like it was a living nightmare. It's like, when you get dead arm and you have to like,
Shake
so
it.
it never went away. It sucked. And my best friend was like, oh, you should try this meditation light that my mom brought back from Austria. She's like, it's like doing shrooms. And I just kind of looked at her and I was like, I've known you since you were 10. You've never done that. That sounds ridiculous. And I just kind of moved on with the idea. And then fast forward a year or two, through, again, therapy, my therapist suggested I try meditation. Didn't really know much about it. So I Googled it, and like me, I ended up down an internet rabbit hole, and I found a website. I think it was Paper Magazine, talking about this light that makes you trip balls. And I literally, that's what it said. And so I forwarded the article to my girlfriend going, is this the light? And she's like, yes, that's the exact one. And I was like, oh my gosh, sign me up. So I went there that afternoon, and, you lay down, you close your eyes, they place this light over your face, and it uses a combination of solid and flickering white light to pull you into a relaxed state. But what I saw was so colorful and so wild. My pain was gone, and it didn't cure it by any means. It just distracted me from it. I was so in the moment by what I was watching that those pain signals were muted. So I started going back once a week to kind of get outside of myself, to get this break. And, after 6 or 7 times, I started sleeping through the night. I was noticing my thoughts like you wouldn't believe, like all the things sort of around meditation. So I started doing more research around it. And then decided to basically buy my own and open this business, because it had made such a difference in my life, that I was like, other people, there's got to be someone else out there, or hopefully a bunch more people out there who it will also benefit, because essentially what happens is white light has every color of the spectrum in it. And you close your eyes, and this light goes in through your retina, which is the non-seeing part of your eye, travels down your optical nerve, and then stimulates to your hypothalamus, and then stimulates your pineal gland, which releases these sort of mind-activating hormones that make this journey very visual. And your brain interprets the colors and the patterns however it kind of deems. And essentially, this is very deep rest for your nervous system, because anytime your brain can be in that focused state, your body begins to rest. And I've been working, when you first tried it, you and Lindsay, I'd only had it for, it was less than 6 months, I'd say. And then now I'm coming up on 3 years. So
Wow, crazy.
I've done it a lot longer, and I've seen like a lot more range of the benefits that come from it. And it's pretty incredible, because anytime the light essentially holds you in that state where you're kind of awake, kind of asleep. So, when you hit snooze on the alarm, I don't even know what that's like anymore, but so it holds you in that state where you're kind of awake, kind of asleep. And that is very deep rest for your nervous system. And anytime you can spend in that downgraded state, you're in a relaxed state, you're downgrading your nervous system, so that when you get up, you're just calmer, because you're not like vibrating at this level. I mean, that's what meditation is supposed to do. It's supposed to relax you, among other things. So I kind of call it, meditation on steroids. It's by no means the only way to meditate, or even the best way to meditate. It is just another tool that you can use in your practice, whatever that may be. But yeah, like I live next door to a fire department, and I've got a couple of those guys who use it regularly because they find it just completely relaxes them, especially after a night shift. They feel well rested just after doing 45 minutes under the light. It depends people get different things out of it. It depends what you're into, who you are, where you are on your journey. But yeah, it was developed by a neurologist and a psychologist out of Austria. So,
and
yeah.
are you seeing it more widely used now, or is it still pretty niche?
It's still pretty niche. There's 2 of us in the city here in Vancouver that do it, and not. I think they're. Oh, in Canada, I'm not sure how many. I want to say less than 20, wow. But I haven't checked the numbers, and I don't even think I looked in 2020. I didn't think anyone was doing anything in 2020.
Everyone's just living under a rock in 2020.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's pretty cool. Like I've seen it work well with individuals who have anxiety, just because a lot of times anxiety is our brain going wild on us. I mean, not necessarily in any specific negative or positive way, just there's a lot going on. And as we know, every thought sets off like a cascade of hormones in your body that tell your body to do something, whether that's like for example, like that feeling of butterflies, you get when you get that nervous anxiety, that is literally blood flow being pulled away from your gut. And when that happens, you get the butterfly feeling. And so it's like, I've learned, like, even to talk about a mindset shift, I've now learned that just because I have that feeling, it doesn't necessarily mean something bad.
No, not at all.
Yeah, but I used to think that, like, oh, I get that.
That's negative.
That's negative. Like, something bad is going to happen because I wouldn't otherwise have this feeling. But I remember having all those feelings like that growing up.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's so interesting how we become like, I look at, it's that cliche saying, and I love cliches because they're cliches for a reason, but if I knew then what I know now kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's so true. But something you touched on, and I'm so, like you say, going down a rabbit hole. I'm so into this right now, this whole mind-body connection. And something you mentioned off the top and what got you under the light originally was the idea of somehow remedying this nerve disconnection that you were experiencing and having, your hands were asleep, your arm was asleep, your feet were asleep. But you got into a state under the light where you were able to tell your mind to relax. And what did your body do? Your body focused on that. And it's just that is such a beautiful articulation of your mind controls how you feel, like to the nth degree. And the moment that we can fully not understand that, but know it, like we know it, then I feel we are, those of us that are able to get there, like truly limitless in our potential. And I'm understanding again that we are only using such a small percentage of our potential. And if it's like what you're offering with, it's called Lucia number 7.
Lucia number 3 is the name
number
of
3. Yeah.
I like number 7, but no, 3.
Oh, like if it's tools like that, they're going to allow you to tap into that and just see like, oh my God, like I just totally opened up and allowed for the space, and my mind relaxed, and I no longer felt, like you said, anxious. Or I could see this tool being used for like PTSD as well, and so many other things that I'm sure it is used for, well beyond my understanding or scope. But it's just, for me, as a great articulation and a tangible exercise that you can see the power of your mind and the power of an exercise like meditation. And I encourage anyone who's near to Jaylee, or when traveling is a thing again, travel to Jaylee and look her up and get yourself under that light. And not only under the light, but exposed to being in a room with Jaylee, because like she said, her purpose is, you laugh uncomfortably, but I'm being serious. Her purpose is to make you feel better. So how can that not be a good room to be in? Tell me about some of the profound profound things that have come out of your time under the light as of late? You mentioned you've been doing it now for 3 years. I would imagine if I had that thing near me, I'd be doing it all the time. But like what
you would think you'd be doing it all the time. But like, I just had a moment 2 weeks ago that, again, there's always like these reality checks, like the universe or whatever you want to call it, checking you with reality and like keeping you in line, because like, when you're in, like the last couple of weeks were pretty hard for me. I had a rough, and normally I'm so excited and happy and bubbly and like literally skipping across the street. But the last couple of weeks were really tough for me. I don't know why and I just realized like, and I've had those weeks before, and normally I would pretend that I wasn't pumped. I would just pretend, because if I don't think about it, it doesn't exist, and I don't acknowledge it, and I just ignore it, and I keep doing all the things that I do. But the difference this time was like, I remember I turned to my husband and I just went, I am sad. I think I am depressed. And it was like an out of body experience, because I've never really just taken it and been like, I don't feel good. Nothing is awesome. Like, and I'd never really verbalized those feelings before. And so I think like, I don't know. It's kind of like I realized that, so I don't know. I'm kind of, not that I'm losing my train of thought, but how do I say this? Like, profound things that I've had under the light. I remember it was maybe my 7th or 8th time I did the light. And I remember having this thought that was, you have everything you need already inside of you. And that caught me really off guard, because I wasn't that type of person to think like that. And the fact that I caught it, and like, and this is the weird thing I've learned, like, I've started to pay attention to the thoughts that I like, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally.
I know, but like, and I know, like, using, and this is with any meditation, whether you use the light or not, like, the more you do it, what you do is, I know for me, like, you're increasing your ability to stay focused, so that when you do get distracted, you notice, and then it gives you have time and space to decide what you want to do when you get distracted. You can, like, I'm now very aware when I'm consciously choosing to be distracted. You know, and a lot of times I still get distracted without even knowing it. I mean, I'm always a work in progress, but the times that I do notice it, I'm like, wow, this is really that option where I just make a choice. And then sometimes I realize how I'm feeling. I'm comfortable being distracted, and I go the distracted route. Like, I route in my body. So it's interesting thing. I don't know. It's profound things under the light. It's just, I wouldn't say anything really profound, but just like, you're in that in-between space. And so I know that when you're in that space, you know, your subconscious, your analytical mind is less reactive. And so thoughts and ideas come flowing in and out of your mind with more ease. And the more in tune you can be, just the closer you'll get to who you are and what you want, if that makes any sense. Like, yeah. I was listening to this podcast. There's this exceptional podcast called Work Life with Adam Grant. I'm not sure if you ever heard of it. He's an organizational psychologist, and do you know J.J. Abrams? Yeah. The producer, writer guy, Lost. Anyway, he said something that I just thought was incredible. He said, we're all walking around with like 1,000 lessons that we need to, and it just made me think, like, you know, every growth is like this, you know, your growth, but then you realize, no, it's like this, you go up and down. But after I listened to this, I was like, no, that's not it at all. Growth, you know, we're a sphere, and growth is expansion and contraction, constantly filling up and folding in. And I realized that because he was like, we're all walking around with, let's say, like 1,000 lessons that we need to know to kind of function in the world, except we can only carry about 900. So we're constantly dropping lessons and picking up lessons we've already learned and relearning things and forgetting things. And that's kind of what he said. But then I was like, yeah, that's exactly it. And the more time you can take to breathe deep, be in tune with what you're feeling in your body, you're more likely to be able to call on the right lessons that you've learned somewhere along the way. And so like the more present you can be. And I was just like, oh, that's what it's about. Is because then you have a much richer, thicker experience of life. Like
Totally.
even just walking down the street. So, and that's what I mean. Like that's the difference between me now than the difference before, where I was just like, even things like I'll now go for a walk without my phone. Like I literally just take my keys, because I realized for 10, 15 years, I didn't go anywhere without something in my ear, music or a podcast as a distraction. And I wanted to know how I was going to make all these changes in my life. But I never, ever, ever, ever once until 3 years after cancer started to listen. So it was just like, I didn't do, but I did, and they say you have to get into your body. And what did I do after I got cancer? I started Pilates and then became a Pilates instructor. So I really learned how to connect my mind to my body, but I still didn't feel emotion. I just felt my glute.
Physical.
And
yeah,
I felt physical. So even then, and that transitioned through things. So it's like I was doing all these things to heal that I didn't really realize. But then when I look back on it, it's no, I had a therapist and they were making these suggestions. I used to joke, or I don't, it's not even a joke, and I still say it. My psychiatrist got me off medication and on meditation. And I just think that, and you don't hear of that often. So I just had a really, I don't know, it's mental health work and help. And I don't know, I just kind of, I think I woke up one day and was like, I just have to do the things they tell me to do. And that's always been my problem, is I know all the things, I never did the things. Which is basically like why we even know it.
Yeah,
We're not
exactly.
gonna do it.
Are you open to chatting about relationships for a second? Because
Sure.
I think there's something really interesting that I would like to understand, and I think again the listeners would take a lot from, is you've been with your husband for how long?
We met in 2011.
Okay,
So 10 years.
10
And then, married
Go ahead.
8. Married 8.
Married. Okay, so together for 10, or know each other for 10 years, married for 8. In that time, he's gone through changes. You've gone through, seemingly like massive changes. Again, I'm talking from an outsider looking in. How has that impacted your relationship, especially in the last, since you've got cancer, since you've now been in remission and beaten it, and you've changed your mind, changed your body, changed so much about you? How has that impacted your relationship over the years?
Oh, lots. Impacted it lots in many different ways. And it is not, relationships and marriage, I don't think are easy at all. Whoever said, I've always, I always joke with Dallas. It's they always say marriage takes work, but no one, unless you're starting to delve into this world, can tell you what that work is. No one can. Or if they do, it's all different. I will say, I was diagnosed pretty much, on our 1-year wedding anniversary, we were sitting at a restaurant, head down, because I was waiting to find out if I had cancer. So it was just we had our first year of marriage, and that wasn't fun, obviously, the first year anniversary. And then, at the time he lived out of town, he was working up north, on the rigs up in Alberta. He doesn't do that anymore. So he was gone 2 weeks, home a week. And when I was sick, it was a whirlwind. The only way I can describe it is, I think the movie Vanilla Sky pops out in my mind, but there's a scene where they're standing this, or maybe no, that's not that movie. It doesn't matter. Point is, I'm standing on a corner and the world is just flying by and everything is a blur. I don't remember a lot of that. I don't remember a lot of feeling or emotion in that period of my life. I think my brain did me a solid and was you got cancer, you got to have surgery, you got to have IVF, you got to do chemotherapy. We will pause the emotions and the thoughts until this is done, and those will come later. And that definitely did. I'd say our relationship was really suffering just because I was suffering. And so we almost called it quits. And I'm not saying like, but yeah, Dallas is his name. And it's like, you got to go talk to someone. And so this is the other thing. I just went, okay, yeah, I think I do. Like, I was so receptive to that suggestion. Like, it was kind of like, duh, why didn't I think of that sort of thing? Like, look what I've just been through. And so I just called up my doctor and I made a regular doctor's appointment. She got me in to see someone. I got a referral. I had to go through a few to find someone I jived with. And through that, lots of changes happened. And our relationship has been a struggle constantly, but I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, it's just a struggle because, like,
that's what relationships are.
Yeah, like on his end of things, I now look back at the person I was before and like, what? Like, and so it's, but then on the flip side, my husband also has chronic Lyme disease. So, he was bit by a tick in 2006, way before it was even a thing, and was diagnosed in 2011, just a few, maybe like 6 or 7 months before I met him. So he also had his own health issues. So we were kind of like, we just met. and like, but yeah, it's like, it was definitely changed because I've changed. He's seen me calm down quite a bit. And I mean, one of those things is I did used to have, like, I would be so overwhelmed by my emotions and I had a lot of anger. I didn't realize how angry I was until I got into therapy. And like, I remember, again, like one of those life moments where you're present enough to be aware of what you're thinking and what's going on around you. And I remember one time, we had an issue. I don't even remember what it was about, but I remember going, wow, the amount of anger and rage you feel about this is not, like, doesn't match. Like, you should not be this friggin' upset over this. And I literally stopped what I was like yammering on about and told him. I'm like, weird. And then I was like, is this what you've been dealing with? Like, I literally said that. So like, there's been tons of shifts in that respect, but there's, good with the bad. It's, I've had to learn to express like my needs and boundaries, like all these like hot words right now that you see on this. But again, I didn't even know these were things I was lacking. And I didn't even know I was learning to set them when I was doing it, because I had the therapist, like I was being guided by a professional in a way. And I stopped going to therapy last year. I do online therapy with a group that I love. Like I was just like, there's no way I'm not going to continue doing this stuff because I know it works. I feel so good. It's keeping me mentally healthy for the most part. And it's like, I work out my muscles and I now know how the brain is situated and it needs this stuff because like, I even realized a friend said to me the other day, she's like, one of my big coping mechanisms is fitness and movement. And then I realized the other day, like, what if all of a sudden I hurt myself and I couldn't do that? Would I be still mentally capable? Like, because those are our outlets. And so I realized, like, I'm starting to have to branch out more and have more experiences and do other things. So, I've recently, like just now, it sounds so funny, but only recently started getting into like stretching more. It's something I just never did because I would get bored and I'd rather do something else.
Right.
But like, so it's just constantly trying to change things up because I didn't realize again how stagnant I was before all of this. I mean, before all of this, I was a mortgage broker.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I became a mortgage broker in 2020. No, 2020, 2000, sorry. 2020 was last year. Sorry, in 2000.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, this is like, we got a whole other like 6 hours of podcasting. We should. Why don't you have your own podcast? Why isn't there a Remind meditation podcast?
You know what? I've often thought about a Things Cancer Made Me Say podcast is what I wanted to do, just because it was like, in my opinion, cancer was kind of the last symptom of my, I want to say, like, mental health issues, disease. Whether that's, like, whether that's like just things like dealing with anxiety and stress, just whatever, you know, mental health means to you, sort of thing. And so, you know, I've often thought about starting a podcast called Things Cancer Made Me Say, but ultimately turning it into like Things Blank Made Me Say, you know, like what,
Yeah.
you know, because there's lots of people, because even then, you know, and then even a format of, you know, having maybe 3 or 4 people on a show, but all being asked the same questions because they have different perspectives. Like, for example, I know what it's like to have cancer. I don't know what it's like to be a parent of someone with cancer, or a child, or a supportive spouse, or a chemo nurse that maybe gets to know these patients and sees them. Like, there's so many different angles to take that, or to be like whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's just
perspective.
So I've thought about that, but then again, I think about a lot of things. What I do.
And I appreciate that, and I think we're all lucky because of that. And I think it's so great that you are now, again, this is my interpretation of it, stepping into it even more and hopping in front of the camera and sharing thoughts. I think that's so great, and it's been so inspiring to watch you. And like I said off the start, I've always been so intrigued by you and so attracted to what you're doing and your energy, and I've always enjoyed our time interacting, like literally always.
Thank you.
But now I'm seeing that which I thought was inside of you now come through you in the external, which doesn't make you better or worse necessarily, but what it does for me is it just shows a tangible result to the outside world of when you do this work internally, a byproduct is you love yourself more, you love your body more, and when you love yourself and your body more, you catch yourself in the mirror out of the shower and you're like, hey girl, like look at me, or hey dude, like it's just a byproduct. And I just think your story is so inspiring from what you have gone through with cancer and being so open to sharing that. And I applaud you for everything that you have done and everything that you're doing. So thank you so much for being a friend, and thank you so much for just being an inspiration for me, and I'm sure tens of thousands of other people around the world.
Well, I just thank you for saying that. But you know, you were my coach at the beginning of this, so you know, good coaching too. For you know,
I'm a big believer that we literally, if you to like a good coach, like a good therapist, like a good trainer, it has nothing to do with that. It's what's in that person. And you've always had this within you, and were there moments where I was able to pull a little bit more out of you? Perhaps. Were there
definitely
moments where
at the gym. Stop talking and you can do another burpee.
Yeah. But there are moments where it is just you. At the end of the day, that is it. You can bring a horse to water, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where I think that's where I feel like if you haven't, you need to take time and celebrate and look at where you are at and look how far you've come and look at the change that you're having, and impact that you're having on other people, because it is happening. And I'll be one of the first to say, like, I get inspired when I see you doing what you do. So thank you so much. I do want to respect your time, and you do have a gym session, as you mentioned, and it's something that you do hold near and dear to you. So I don't want to hold you up too much longer, but before I let you go, if people do want to follow along your story and get engaged with you, how best they do that? What's the best way for them to reach out and touch base?
Oh, probably just Instagram, okay. I guess. Yeah. And
it's at Things
Cancer Made Me Say is kind of where I just post a lot of my, I don't know. Skipping videos. I like to skip.
I love the skipping videos. It's impressive to watch your growth there. It's great.
Yeah, well, I picked up skipping during the pandemic when the quarantine happened and the gym shut down, because that's again when I really started to see my anxiety, because I didn't have my distractions. And So I would just skip even for like 6 minutes. Whereas before I'd have to work out like 45 minutes and burn all these calories.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I just need to go feel better for a minute. So anyway, yeah, skipping. But then remindmeditation.ca
Yes.
is probably the best one, because I really want to share this experience of the light with people, because again, it's just one way to meditate, and it's pretty cool. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them there, because it's hard to explain with words, this experience.
Yeah, and I'll see if I can find that video of Lindsay nearly peeing herself laughing so hard, and I'll post it along with this podcast when it goes live. Thank you, Jaylee, so much for coming on and sharing your story and being vulnerable and open and emotional and all of those things, because it allows for me and listeners to get a better understanding of who you are and what makes you tick. And it also helps us understand that you're just a regular human like all of us, and you feel things and you emote things, and that's healthy and that is good. And I also want to say thank you to you guys listening, because if it wasn't for you, this podcast wouldn't exist. That is Jaylee. I am Brad. This was a Brad Bodnerchuk podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in as you do week after week. And you know what to do. Until next time, be good and do good. We did it. Well done.
Yay.
You did awesome.
Yeah, that was fun.
You did great for just never trusted.
A lot of times I didn't trust my own self with my own knowledge and the things I knew. And so when I was going through the healing journey and I started sharing videos on social media of me doing Pilates, because here I knew this, I became a Pilates instructor. What I found fascinating is I had no problem going on video and showing my body doing a movement, but I could not get on camera and speak and tell you what my thoughts were or what I was thinking, because I was so afraid. It was weird to see the shift, how I was no longer worried about necessarily my body, but I was still very worried about what, like, a lot of, like, if what I had to say had value, or if what I said was correct, or if what, like, a lot of times I'd read information and then I would not trust that I understood what I read, and then I would think the things I was saying wasn't true. Like, I wouldn't trust my own. And so to see that change, where I now know that I can read something, I can understand it, and I can teach that to someone or share it with someone. And I used to start every single sentence with, this might sound stupid, but you may already know this, but I know you know this, but just in case, like, I would preface everything that would be like, just so you know, I know that if you know this already, I already know that, so I'm not maybe as dumb as you think I am. Like, that was the level of my thinking patterns. And so it's just, to me, it's weird that, like, now I'm able to share. I think I'm going on screen a little bit more and sharing what I think, because I'm now, it's not about that anymore. Like, I trust myself. And so it's a weird thing to lose, like that amount of, like, having to pre-position everything, if that makes any sense. Like, and it also came with, now that movement is such a natural part of my day, the amount, like, the internal court case I don't have going on in my brain anymore about, I have to go to the gym, or I don't have to, like, it's like I have all this free time. So it's just, anyway, I thought it was interesting how, like, I thought, I had all these body image issues. And then once I got through the body image issues, and I still have them, I'm working on them though, I realized, it was also the thinking, like, I was so afraid that I didn't know what I was talking about, or blah, blah, blah. And so I would have to preface that, and to have that go away, which was one of, like, the biggest things I noticed in myself. Anyway.
That's so cool. I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. A little extra. That's like an extra hitter for everyone. We'll put that into the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it.